episode 3 of our For Real-Isodes. Welcome back.
We're back, baby.
We are back. No oyster sauce this time. No celebrity best friends this time. Those were the 2 previous episodes. But today, what is our question today?
Today, we're actually going to stick in the realm of running. For those of you who are about to tune out, because we've said nothing running related, this one is for you. Today, I am going to ask you, what is the worst running weather that you've ever ran in? And also, I think just differently, but our worst weather race was actually at the same race. Do you know which race I'm thinking of?
Worst weather race.
I'll give you a hint. The title of the town, the name of the town was actually, it's very ironic given that that's where the race was. It was called Slippery Rock.
Oh, yes.
Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, which we ran on a sheet of like 3-inch thick ice, so thick that they had to draw a line where the course was because you couldn't see it.
Well, and the funny thing about that is how close you and I were to each other in that moment. We didn't become friends for Oh no! Was it after that race? It was the evening of that race.
I think that's when I met you, but I don't think we became friends until we were being drug tested, like half a year later.
Yeah. It would have been a year later at that was 2007.
Tina, do you realize how long ago we were in college? Has that hit you yet? How long ago? Yes. We're almost like double the age.
I know.
It's crazy.
I do think about that often when people say, you meet people who are in their early 20s now and they're like, I'm like, what year were you born? And they're like, 2004. And I'm like,
we're not the same thing.
What? Like I was finishing up high school around that time.
You look really good for being an 8-year-old. I don't understand.
But yes, I do think about that. But yes, Slippery Rock, that was the worst. Was that the worst race?
Well, I think that's the worst.
That was pretty bad.
Maybe right. But yeah, I think you had a half that. Oh, you had the world half. That was super, super windy.
Yes. Yeah, that was definitely, I would say, the weirdest and the worst weather of running. Do you remember seeing the video clip of Mo Farah and 2 other guys and they were running and they went past the alleyway? Yeah. And they got blown to the side and they came back. I will never forget that because when you say it's bad weather in a race, people are always like, yeah, you're just making excuses. And I was like, no, if you watch this clip of Mo and these other guys like running straight and then suddenly they're like a meter to the left and then they come back into the street. That was how windy and wet and rainy it was. And yeah, that's the one that I was just like,
Well, Tina, neither of us ran in like the crazy Boston year, but I wonder how I always wonder how I would have done.
Yeah.
In a race like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you have a particular like because it's worse when you're out there by yourself for like a 20 mile or something like that. And it's miserable because a race, you're kind of like, okay, like I have a goal here. But do you have like a day that sticks out?
I do remember one run out in Michigan where it was thunderstorming and I was running near these power lines and I was trying to get home because I was so scared I was going to get struck by lightning because I was near the power lines. But that wasn't particularly weird or like it was just a thunderstorm. But I do remember feeling really scared, like I could die.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's mine. But you said yours was a few days ago, and I want to hear
exactly so that's the crazy thing. And I just was telling you, but like how I've been running for 19 years, and literally of tens of thousands of miles, my scariest weather day just happened last week, and it was one of those days where because here in the South, it's not like Washington. I remember one time I was watching Family Feud, and the question was like, "Oh, what is the worst weather state in the U.S.?" And so I was like, "Oh, I'm curious what state's going to be number one. Is it going to be like Texas because it's always drier, this and that?" And Washington popped up and I was like, are you serious? Because I grew up in Washington. I was like, the weather's great. It just rains a little. It's no big deal. But really here in the South, it's like, the bad weather can come up so fast that you can have like 2 minutes worth of warning. So I was out for a run and I was like less than a mile from the car and it started getting crazy. It's like, it was really windy, so windy that it was like, it started pouring rain and I thought it was hail because it was coming so fast that it was stinging. It was almost like little teeny tiny paintballs. It really hurts. And it went from being like, I was like laughing and splashing through, but I was like, haha, this is crazy. Within the span of like 20 seconds, I was like, oh, it's not okay. Like, this is not okay. And then about, I would say probably 30 or 40 feet to my right, a stop sign flew past me. And then I realized, I was like
out of the ground?
Literally like out of the ground, flew. And I was like, I'm not okay. Like I literally had that moment of like, I may not make it back to my car. You have all these thoughts of like, but I have children. And like, so I like sprinted up and I like cowered behind a pot on somebody's porch for like 5 minutes. And then I was like, okay, I'm like 2 minutes from the car. I'm just going to sprint as fast as I can. So I'm like I can barely see. There's 1 or 2 cars like creeping along the side of the road. And there's a cop and I can't even hear him. And he's like trying to shout out his window. So he uses his loudspeaker. He's like, ma'am, do you need a ride? And I was like trying to gesture. I was like, I'm right there. My car is right there. And he put up like prayer hands in the window. So I get back to my car. I make it. And let me read you. The emergency alert had come through on my phone while I was out running. And this is what it says, all capital letters, severe weather warning in effect for this area, destructive 80-mile-per-hour winds, take shelter in a sturdy building away from windows, flying debris may be deadly to those caught without shelter. That's what I was running in, which to me, it's like I got home and like there were like 3 trees down along the road. It was like so crazy. I was like, I could have died out there. But even then it's like, that was like crazy. To me, the thing that's the worst, and you have to tell me if you feel the same way, hot weather is like worse physically, but cold weather is worse mentally. So like I've had maybe 2 or 3 runs in my whole career where I got back from the run and I'm like, I regret having done that run. Like I feel like it did more damage than good.
From the heat or the cold or both?
From the cold of like, I feel like it damaged me so much mentally that I wish I hadn't done it. Have you ever felt like that?
Cold. I don't, no, I don't think no. I mean, I definitely had some runs in Michigan that were like, you know, your eyelashes are stuck together. And I was like, this was dumb to go out and do that. But, you know, what was the point of that? Like, did I really need to run that badly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd quite say it. Like, I felt like it did damage. You know, when I did damage to myself, which was the Philadelphia Marathon, I pushed myself too far mentally and physically. And the Mount Sac 10K, do you remember where I crawled over the finish line?
I do, yes. Yeah. Oh man, it's like, it hurts. It hurts to think about. Like even now, it's like 15 years later, it's like, it's still painful to think about. You have that on me. I've never actually crawled over the finish line. I collapsed like across a couple of finish lines. But I've never finished a race crawling. I think I've dropped out of a fair amount. I don't know that you've dropped out of maybe one that I can think
no, I've dropped out of quite a few. I'd probably say total I've dropped out of maybe 5 to 10 races.
I'd say that's probably about the same for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have, those were, different reasons each time. Some of them warranted, some of them not. I do remember wanting to drop out once when I was sick, like I'd been vomiting but my parents had driven me all the way up to this race. So I did it anyway. And I just remember making myself look much more pathetic than I even felt, so that my coach would be like, come on, get out, just stop. And he didn't. He just was like, come on. I was like, no.
I think people don't realize, because they see, even though like obviously people who are professional runners, like they, for sure, physically they may be, a fair bit faster and stronger, but mentally everybody has the same thoughts. Everyone has prayed that their hamstring will snap so they can just step to the side. Like, or you talk yourself through a track race of like, okay, one more lap and I can drop out, one more lap and I can drop out.
Yeah. I mean, many times, although I don't feel that now. Because I actually find a lot of recreational runners say to me, like, I don't ever think that, like, why would I think that way? Like, and I don't feel that way now. So it has to be just the pressure we put on ourselves, and the ego associated with having the time next to your name is more what, it's crazy.
And like the best running advice I ever got was from my non-running roommate in college, who like I had a really bad race like that. And I was just complaining about it for like 15 minutes. And she just stopped me and she's like, I'm not going to bullshit you. Like nobody cares. Like really nobody cares. And that was so freeing, because like at the end of the day, if you drop out, nobody cares. Like,
wait, I think I'm not going to have you say it, but I think I can guess which one. You said that was one of your college teammates?
No, it was a roommate, a non-running.
Roommate.
I don't know if you ever met her, but you would love her. She was fabulous. She was just wonderful.
Okay. No, I don't know if I did, but that seems kind of the perfect thing to say in a moment like that. So, All right. Anything else to add on this topic of weirdest running weather?
As always, I think we just always love to hear from anyone who's listening. I would love to hear more specifically, because that to me is a badge of honor now. I've run an 80-mile-an-hour winds. Has anyone run a winds stronger than that? Because that was insane. Like,
I know, yeah, that is. I mean, okay, let's see who has been made a poorer choice than Sarah in running in 80-mile-an-hour winds and refusing to get in the cop car to take you the last 100 meters of the way. No, at that point, I absolutely would be like, no, I'm fine. It's like, you know, when you used to struggle, or I used to really struggle with 2 suitcases when I'd bring them across to the US, and I'd be like struggling with my bags and going up the escalators in the airport. And a man would be like, can I help you? And I'd be like, no, I do it myself. Even though I was like, you know, falling down the stairs and just like barely able to stay upright. And I'm like, no, I do this.
You're also the person that will carry in 19 grocery bags and run out. I know this.
Still do to this day. That's one thing I just can't seem to let go of.
You'll tear the skin on your forearms with groceries before you to make 2 trips.
Yes. No, I'm definitely still that person. I've let go of a lot of things, but not that. All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.